Hey, everybody, and welcome to a Tatter-a-fact. We're here at the Girlz Ink studio live in Las Vegas, and this is a special episode of Tatter-a-fact. Yeah.
Hi.
So today, I've got the behind-the-scene girls, Olivia and Willow, behind the mics.
For the first time.
For the very first time, because this is our 50th episode of Tatter-a-fact. Can you believe it?
No.
I know,
It's
right?
hard to believe it's already been 50.
50. I'm like, I've done 50. We've done 50. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And I think, well, first of all, before we start, I want to, before we get into anything and I may forget, I want to thank the both of you, Olivia and Willow. Thank you for doing this with me. Not just doing it with me, but you guys love it. It means as much to you guys as it does to me. I see you guys reading the reviews and getting excited about, the number of downloads growing and the engagement. So it really comes through how much you both enjoy it and your hearts are in it. And I'm grateful for that. I could not do this alone. I could not. And we're going to talk, that's what we're going to talk about today, kind of behind the scenes and what it takes to go into a podcast and some other stuff. Yeah?
Yeah.
I know, right? And then we have a rookie, since you were not in the captain chair pushing the buttons and doing
I had to let go of the chair.
you had to
Forced
delegate.
in front of the camera.
Yeah, you had to delegate today,
Yeah.
Olivia. And we're going to talk about delegating at some point today. But yeah, you had to let go and delegate and hand over the reins to Katrina. So we've got Katrina for the very first time sitting in your chair.
Yeah.
Pushing the buttons and controlling the camera angles and all that stuff. So
Let us know how she does in the comments.
Yeah. We're going to poke at Katrina a little bit. Pressure's on Katrina. She'll do just fine.
Yeah.
She'll do just fine.
She learned from the best.
She learned from the best. Well, you gave her a 5-minute crash
I
course
did.
this morning. But we have faith in Katrina. I think she's going to be just fine. So yeah. So look, this is the 50th episode, and when you told me that, Willow, I had to stop for a minute. I was like, oh my God, it's 50 episodes. So I want 50. That's like a landmark number, right? That's like a milestone.
It's a huge achievement.
Number. It is a huge achievement. And because these are hard. Podcasts are hard. They're harder. They're much harder than I thought they were going to be. And they're a lot more work than I anticipated and that I thought they were going to be. I thought it was just going to be just fun and giggles and easy, and you just get behind mics, you just talk, and and that's it. And boy, I was wrong. Not that it's not a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. There's a lot of moving parts, and it takes all three of us to make Tatter-a-fact what it's become and what it will continue to evolve into. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let me get my glasses on here. So how Tatter-a-fact got started was really because of COVID, right? There were no more PMU conventions. There were no more in-person classes. And I was so used to that, throughout the year, like being in classes, going to conventions, speaking, meeting artists and connecting with artists. And I really missed that. I tried to do some, classes on Instagram, and, I tried to stay connected that way. But I came up with this crazy idea. Let's do a podcast. That kind of will create a platform where I can kind of connect to the industry, talk to them, educate, motivate, and things like that. So it kind of was born from COVID, feeling bored during COVID, feeling disconnected from COVID. And you started it with me. You weren't quite here yet, Willow.
Not yet.
So it was me and Olivia. And you and I had never done a podcast before.
No
right?
idea.
But what did you think when I came to you and said, we're going to do a podcast?
I thought it was a crazy idea.
You thought it was
I was nervous, but I really wanted to impress you because I've only been here for like a year. So I was like, I'll figure it out.
So after a year, you were still that I want to impress
Yeah.
Teryn mode. Yeah. But you've lost that now. You've been here like 3 years, so you no longer feel the need to impress me. For the record, we're just going to put that out there. But you were down.
Mm-hmm.
But look, you're always down for any crazy idea I bring you, and so are you, Willow.
Yeah.
And I bring you guys a lot of crazy ideas.
Yeah.
I'm a manic thinker. I'm an innovator. I'm a creator. I'm just always thinking of doing all these things, these projects, these things. I just, my mind just doesn't stop. So I'm constantly bringing you guys ideas, and so thank God you guys are like able to kind of, roll with it and adapt, and you guys are really good that way. So yeah, no, you really are. Maybe you think to yourselves, oh my God, here we go again. What the hell is she thinking? But you're always down. You never say that to me. You're always down, which I love. So when we first started, Olivia, we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
No.
I didn't know what to buy. I didn't know I knew I needed a mic of some sort. I know I needed a camera of some. I didn't know what else I needed. So I had a colleague friend named Art, and he had some experience in podcasting. He's a videographer, and he filmed a lot of our procedures for the Girlz Ink Academy. So we brought him in, and he kind of not kind of, but he did. He got us set up, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money and buy like a high-end stuff, because what if we didn't like it? What if what if it wasn't our thing? I didn't want to make this big huge like financial investment, but I didn't want it to sound crappy either, So we invested a little bit of money and bought some, mics, and we decided early on, or at least I did, I wanted to be on camera. Most podcasts stream, correct, Willow?
Yes.
And most of our listeners actually listen through one of our streaming services like Podcast Addict, Spotify, iTunes, and Buzzsprout. So the majority of our listeners are listening to us via a streaming service.
Correct. Yeah.
And a smaller percentage actually go to YouTube and watch us. Yeah. But for whatever reason, I don't know why. Back then, I didn't know why. Obviously, sometimes the universe has you do things you don't know why, and then down the road, you're like, that's why, So back then, I didn't know why I wanted it also to be on YouTube and a camera. Maybe because, like I don't want to say I'm a voyeur, but I'm really visible. When I'm watching or listening to Joe Rogan, I want to see what he looks like. I want to see what his guests look like. I'm more visual. I kind of want to watch podcasts. I'll stream them as well, but I like viewing and watching them. So we set up cameras. So we have a Tatter-a-fact YouTube page. And now, a couple years later, 50 episodes later, now having the video and the YouTube page has really benefited, I think, the podcast and helped the podcast.
It definitely has. The video allows like viewers and listeners to feel like they're here almost, and it brings another level to the experience, and it makes them feel, I think, a little bit more sense of community. being able to like see you instead of just hearing you.
Yeah, I think so too. And you're able to clip,
Yep.
we get clips that you can post on Instagram, you can post on the stories, you can use them as reels. You've gotten really clever with the clips.
Thank you.
So yeah, so it's really good. So even though most of our listeners are streaming, we continue to film on camera and post the entire podcast on the Tatter-a-fact YouTube channel. Which is cool. So Art was doing everything, really. He set us all up and showed us how to work the equipment, and then he would critique us, right? He would he would critique us because once we would record it, you would download it and we would send it to Art, and Art would color correct sometimes. He would end up breaking up the clips and posting it to the YouTube channel, right? And he was doing that for quite some time, and he would definitely critique us. I would get these messages from him, and I mean, there was so many episodes like he didn't like this camera angle or this camera angle, and he wouldn't just say like, yeah, this camera angle was not good. He would explain to us why. He would talk about space and distance, space in front of the camera versus behind the camera, and how that was really important. And we learned a lot from Art. I thought Art was a great mentor.
Yeah, he was.
He was really a great mentor. But we didn't really have the bandwidth to do everything Art was doing. And so you came along, Willow.
I did.
You did.
I did.
And
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. And you like editing.
I love it.
You love it.
I think it's, for me at least, it's the most fun part of the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of odd because,
yeah.
right? Because I know a lot of videographers, and for the videographers that I know and that I've worked with, and this may not be true for all videographers, but the ones I personally know, and we've had this exact conversation, their least favorite part of their job is the editing. They like being behind the camera, the filming, the directing, capturing. They love that because that's really creative and whatnot. But when it comes to the editing, it can get a little, I don't know, mundane.
Can get a little repetitive. I can agree with that.
Or a little repetitive.
But I do think you're able to, I'm able to clip out the reels that I think would do the best, and I think are the best clips and little snippets out of the episode. So I feel like I'm able to express a little bit of creativity in that aspect because I kind of have not control over what's chosen, but I have listened to the entire episode. I know what I wanted to hear again and what I think another person who's listening to the podcast would like to hear, and might that clip might make them want to listen to the full podcast or another episode. Yeah. So I think that kind of creative freedom is there. Yeah.
Well, and I think you pick out really good clips. You tend to, or I think your goal is, I might be wrong, but I think you look for great little, maybe not quotes, but like something that I've said that's kind of that's either profound, touching, educational, going to catch their attention in a good way, not just in a way that makes them want to go watch, but in a way that it might speak to them in that moment.
Yeah.
That's what I see you doing when you go through the clips.
That's definitely the goal that I'm doing. So I'm happy that that's coming across.
Yeah, no, that's definitely coming across. So, and then your job is...
What is my job?
Your job is... Well, you got a lot of jobs. Both you got girls do. You got to sit in the captain's chair. You have to get all the angles right. You got to make sure the audio's on point, and you download it and you get it all ready. You're the one who captures the podcast. So you're kind of like the videographer. You capture it, right? And then you hand it off after your job is done. After you capture it, the audio's good, the camera angle's good, everything's visually audio wise good, you pass it off to Willow, and then Willow goes and does what she does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of work. So Willow, you actually you sit here because you sit behind the scenes. You sit back there. So you watch it live,
I do.
and then once Olivia passes it off to you, do you actually sit there and watch the whole thing again, looking for little clips?
There's only been 2 or 3 times that I've had to watch the entire podcast over, and it's been because my notes have been misplaced or I wasn't here. But when we do the podcast, I'm usually sitting behind the camera. I have my phone and then a timer, and I'm taking the time that, like, you say something that I think would be cool.
Yeah.
And like I'm taking notes on like every clip that I think could be possible, everything that we need to promote, like all of that. So I usually get everything I need to do like ahead of time, so I don't have to watch it again.
You don't have to sit there and watch the whole thing again. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I do watch the clips though, or I mean the reels, because I've started adding captions. So I have to make sure all the words are lining up to when you're saying them and everything like that. But
yeah.
normally it's just the one time.
It's not all the time. Yeah. So now we're self-sufficient. We're completely in-house, doing everything our own. We got kicked Art to the curb. Poor Art. No, but he was really proud of us. He watched us go from beginning, novice podcasters into, I don't know if we're professional podcasters, but we're not novice anymore. Intermediate podcasters,
yeah.
semi-professional podcasters. There's always room for growth. I think sometimes, when I don't listen to every podcast back either, but I do listen to, sometimes I do, I'll listen to the whole thing over. And then sometimes I'll listen to just, 10 minutes here, and I'll fast forward and I'll listen to like, pieces of it. And sometimes I like the way that I sound, and I like the way that I've spoken. And then there's some podcasts where I feel I say yeah a lot, like yeah, yeah. And it becomes repetitive, and I pick up on that, and I'm wondering if the listeners do. But I think everybody that's behind a camera, behind a mic, that's displayed, somehow in that way, are really hard on themselves, because you want to come across as, you want to be pleasant to listen to, pleasant to watch. So I think we are. The podcast is growing. It's been on this upward, trend ever since we launched, and it's doing fantastic. So I'm super stoked. One of the things that we had to figure out on our own was Zoom, right? Because you're always trying to think of topics, different, guests and whatnot. And a lot of the guests have to be remote. I mean, you can only pull in so many guests, from the Vegas area. And I like bringing in local artists. We've brought in several, and we'll continue to do that. But there's other artists and, in the industry throughout the world that I want to talk to. I want to ask them questions, and I want them on the podcast. So in order to do that, you have to figure out how to do a good remote podcast. And a lot of the remote interviews that I've watched, they can be the same, kind of, one dimensional, if you know what I mean. And I kind of wanted to do it differently, where I watch Willie Geist on Sundays, and he does remote interviews sometimes. Some of his celebrity guests, they're remote. They're not always in person. And I noticed the way he did them. It wasn't just the Zoom screen and then like a straight on, camera image of him, and then just the Zoom screen of the guest. He had different I like the way they set up his set, capturing different angles. And I thought that was really cool. So that's what we've done with our remote guests. But figuring it out, Olivia, It was kind of difficult. We did have some technical difficulties in the beginning with the Zoom podcasts. Yeah.
Especially with the audio.
Yeah, the audio was difficult.
Yeah.
But you got it figured out. Which ones do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy the remote Zoom ones or do you enjoy...
I like both, but the Zoom ones are easier to set up.
They're easier to set up. Yeah, because it's just
you and the laptop.
But you kind of are at the mercy of the guest.
Yeah.
Hoping, fingers crossed, like they're set up well on their end, like with audio, with lighting, with connection. And we do send them a list of, some tips on how to make sure it's good quality on their end. And that includes a backdrop. I never realized how important a backdrop is to a podcast. Did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Not until we had one. And I was like, oh, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. We actually had a Zoom guest and we had them adjust their backdrop.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the perfect backdrop. I think it was creating a glare.
Yeah. And she looked a little bit too washed out.
Yeah. For me, backdrops, I am super light I get migraines. I think everybody knows that, debilitating migraines. And so I'm super light sensitive. So I cannot watch a podcast where the background is bright white. I cannot. That is, Dolly Parton was just on an interview, and it was a remote interview, and I love Dolly Parton so much. And I don't want to just listen to her. I want to watch her.
That's part of the fun of Dolly Parton.
That's part of the fun of Dolly Parton, right? And I'm obsessed with her the way I'm obsessed with Cher. But I couldn't watch her interview because her backdrop was this glaring, bright white backdrop. And it was painful for me. It was physically painful for me because of my light sensitivity issues. So, and I can't be the only one that is sensitive to bright white backdrops and backgrounds. Or either one of you?
I am, yeah.
You are?
Yeah. The light, it just it absorbs more. If it absorbs more of the screen, and it just makes the entire screen just look too bright.
Yeah. So I think that's a good little nugget for people, if you're doing and this is for Instagram lives, if you're going live on Facebook, your podcast, whatever. I'm not telling you how to change your backdrop or not do white, but maybe take into consideration that there are people that are light sensitive and do have a hard time with a bright white background. You just can't, I physically can't watch it, because that can trigger a migraine for me. So it's super painful. So yeah, I wasn't able to really, I took a couple peeks at Dolly.
Was there anything in the background besides just the white?
There was you could see there was a dresser or a desk of some sort, but it was really low in the frame. And you could tell there was something on the dresser. It could have been a picture frame. I can't really recall. So there was something else in the frame, but it was low. So I would say 75% of above that dresser, all the way to the top of the frame, it was bright white.
Yeah, that's too much. I'd say even just having a picture, a plant or something in the background, that helps break up the background and make it at least a little bit more visually appealing to watch as well.
Yeah, that's why I did a really, I painted our entire podcast room black. I have a really dark background, dark drapes. I did that intentionally for me. And when I'm watching, Howard Stern has a really dark podcast room, and I like it. I'm attracted to that. So I like that he keeps his lighting low, and he has a dark podcast room. And so I kind of modeled the ambiance of our podcast room after kind of Howard Stern's, more of a darker, lower light podcast room. We do have 2 big softbox lights, because you gotta, people gotta see you in the video, so that does add some light. But I like the dark. Background. So I would say one more little tip we could give about backgrounds when doing Instagram lives, interviews, podcasting is also to make sure the background is not too cluttered,
Yeah.
right? Because that can be distracting.
There's a nice middle ground, I think. You can't have it too empty, or else it looks weird.
Yeah.
Like you're just standing in nothing, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or it's too hectic and you don't know what to look at. So there has to be like a fine middle ground, I think.
Yeah, it can almost look like it's green, like a green screen effect if there's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing in the background. And then if it's super cluttered, it can be distracting. So it's fine, like you said, well, it's finding this middle ground of backdrop, because I think backdrop's important.
Yeah,
Because whether you know it or realize it or not, the viewers are they're looking at the backdrop as well. I mean,
they might be listening to you, but they're looking at the entire video and
Yeah.
everything that's caught on camera.
yeah. And you want it to be, pleasing and soothing
Mhm.
to the eyes. And there may be people out there that don't really prefer, dark backgrounds. I mean, that could exist too, just like there's people that don't prefer, bright white backgrounds. I'm not sure, but I don't think black or dark backgrounds hurt or can be physically painful to someone that maybe has, migraines or whatnot. I'm not sure if the color black can trigger anything for anybody with medical issues. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm just kind of thinking that right now on the fly. Yeah, but we'll have to Google that after
to
the
look that
podcast
up.
and see if can black or dark background trigger anything for anybody. So we talked a little bit about the work involved, what it takes to look. This would be much easier, right? A much easier job if all we did was audio stream,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Very easy.
Very easy. But no, we want to do cameras. If I came in tomorrow, you guys, and tell the truth, and said, okay, no more cameras. I'm sick and, I don't want to be on camera no more. We're going to no more YouTube videos. We're just going to go to strictly audio. Would you guys be?
I'd be sad
You
personally.
would be sad.
I'd be
I was
really
gonna say, I
sad.
would like it, but I think Willow likes to edit.
You would like it.
Yeah.
You would like it. Why would you like it?
It would be easier.
It would be
We didn't
easier.
have
So
to
you're
set up
looking for the easy
cameras.
way out, Olivia.
No.
Okay.
I guess I do.
Mental note, Willow. Mental note, Willow. All right. So I love fucking with you, Olivia. But you would be sad.
I would be
Willow.
really sad because, like I said earlier, editing's the most fun part of the podcast for me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Like I would be still editing like the audio, but I wouldn't have like anything to look at. So it would really just be me like laser focused on like all of the sounds in the background.
Yeah.
And I feel like that wouldn't be as much fun.
And is there a lot of editing with audio?
Not for the audio,
Not
no.
really, right?
Usually not, just because Olivia gets it done really well the first time. Like,
Yeah.
she usually like is messing around with everything. If it like spikes, she'll like turn
Yeah.
it down, so I don't really have to worry about that. I usually just look around for like sounds that like drops in the background or like a phone vibrating or something to just
Right.
like silence that. But
Right.
the audio is pretty easy.
The audio is pretty easy. And as far as editing, we don't edit as far as editing out stuff people say
Mhm.
or we film this an hour straight through, and we don't edit that per se. Like we don't
No.
cut out clips or cut in this and try to make it look smoother or anything like that. We edit in the manner of color correcting.
Color correcting, and then like audio, like sometimes like if there is a spike that would just hurt anyone that's listening either in a car or with headphones, I like turn that down.
Right. Yeah.
So mainly just in a way like audio cosmetics, like
Audio cosmetics.
I've
And
tuned it up a
color
little bit.
cosmetics, I think,
Yeah.
a little bit, because I'm always telling you, make me look good,
Yeah.
make me look young, make me look smooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Now they know.
now they know. Yeah.
Your
But-
sequence been revealed.
Yeah.
yeah. But that is one of the hardest part about being on camera, I think, is the fact that you're on camera and people see you. So you have to look good, and you got to look good. Like your hair's got to be done, and you got to look good. I guess you don't have to look good, but most people, and I'm no different, I can be super self-conscious. I don't like the way I look a lot of the times, like in photos or on video. And, so I think that's one of the most stressful parts for me is doing the cameras and doing the video and being on YouTube is presenting yourself, like looking good and feeling confident that you look okay on camera, right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't always feel that I do. So sometimes you look back and I'm like, oh my God, like I think it was just like a week ago, there was a clip and I posted and I had this big white fuzz like in my hair, like right in the part, like where I part my hair. And there was this like big white fuzz. And all I could do was stare at it, like while the clip was playing. But it was a really great clip. I think it was about needles or versatility or something. Like that moment, like what I was saying was pretty cool and I wanted people to hear it. But all I could focus on was that white fuzz. And Olivia, you did not tell me.
I didn't see it.
What do you mean you didn't see it? How can you not see it? Well, I posted it on my Instagram, Girlz Ink, like last week, and I was so self-conscious of it, I mentioned it. Yeah, I did. I said, and thanks for telling me I got a big white fuzz like in my hair through the entire podcast.
Well, I think we're our biggest critiques when it comes to like how we look.
So
right? I didn't see it, but you saw it.
Yeah. Well, look at you. Look at you. You got all purty today.
I did.
Yeah.
I usually don't do my hair.
No. Or
my makeup.
Or your makeup. So how long did you spend this morning preparing because you were going to be on camera?
2 hours.
Are you fucking kidding me?
But because I took my time, it's like a little like
it's therapy kind of.
Yeah, it's therapy.
So did you have to get up earlier?
Yeah.
You did. You got up earlier just to do this podcast, just to do this episode. Well, let's get some engagement and comments about that.
How long does it take you to get ready?
Me? Like about 35, 40 minutes. Yeah, seriously.
That's
short. That's short.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm still really vain, but I think the older you get, like the less time you have on earth, like, the more years behind you and the less years in front of you, you start worrying less. Like that sort of stuff becomes less important. Like it's not like you don't care what you look like, because I am super vain. I am. I've always cared about my appearance, my hair, my clothes. I mean, like I'm into clothes and belt buckles and ties. I've always been into clothing, accessories, and that in my look and everything like that. But I used to spend 2 hours, and then start all over again because I wasn't happy with how it came out, how things came out. But I do think, like I said, once the less years you have in front of you, that becomes less important. You find ways to get to a presentable self where you feel good quicker. You just do. You don't want to spend 2 hours getting ready anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that happens for a lot of people as they get older.
Would you say that permanent makeup, like having your own done, has like helped your?
Yeah, immensely. I just had Michonne do my lips, my eyebrows are done, so that helps. The thing that takes me the longest is doing my hair, because for those that don't know, I kind of have wavy hair, and it's like. And no one has ever seen me fresh out of if you could see me fresh out of the shower and my hair dries naturally, it's not good.
I
It's
think
n-
I've seen you once
when?
during COVID.
When?
You came into the studio.
I did?
Yeah.
Did I have? I
Huh?
did not.
Your hair wasn't straightened.
It wasn't straight?
No.
And you thought, what the hell? Yeah, I can tell by the look in your eye.
I've never once seen you without straightened hair.
And
I
you
thought,
never will.
I thought your hair was like pinned straight.
No, it's not. This is a lot of work. This takes me about 30 minutes, man. About 25 minutes. And then the rest is putting on, a little mascara and I don't really wear foundation and, things like that. Like I have pretty good skin. So I don't have to wear a lot of foundation and blush and powder. I'll dust a little powder on because, I can get a little oily, but no, it's my hair. That takes me the longest. And sometimes it can be picking out my outfit too. Yeah, because I really love clothes. So sometimes that's why I just wear black to work, so I don't have to take too long in the morning figuring out my, where to work. But yeah, so besides, so I think that's the hardest part. Doing the video portion is feeling you look good and being confident, right? And got to deal with cameras. So you have to deal with camera angles. We already talked about Art critiquing us on camera angles. We had to learn camera angles, and camera angles are a thing. You don't really realize that, but they're a thing.
Mhm.
They're a thing. And making sure the subject, the person is not necessary. We don't really center them, and you don't want them off too much to this side, but there's a formula. There's a ratio as far as subject, the person, and frame. There's like this ratio and this format that is used to make sure that it looks proportionate and it looks balanced. So we've got that dialed in, but that took us a minute,
Yeah.
Olivia.
I honestly I can't go back and watch old podcasts because I kind of cringe
You
at
kinda
the
cringe.
frames.
Yeah.
There was one where I was like, oh God, why did I do that?
Yeah, there's been some where it's like we were too blown up on their face, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, she looks like she's got a big old head,
Yeah.
right? There was one where we had someone she had really white skin, and it was like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
like her face was glowing, like I almost couldn't look because it was going to give me a migraine. It was like the white background, like
Yeah.
right. That needed some color correcting or adjusting on the camera itself. And so, yeah, you look back, but I remember you and I being hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
I remember at first you and I didn't see the things. We would watch it and go, oh, we did good. That's so good. And we'd send it to Art, and then he would email me. He would text me, Teryn, right here, this frame right here. This is not good. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And he'd give us all this list. And I would come to you and I'm like, we got scolded. And he'd be like, what? And I would show you. And once he would point it out, we would see it.
Yeah.
But we didn't see it until he pointed it out. So I think it's just like anything, just like permanent makeup. It's developing your eye. It's first being taught how it should look, or what looks great as far as camera angles and framing, learning what is appropriate, what looks proportionate, what looks good to the viewer, even if the viewer doesn't know it. All right. Podcasters need to learn it and know it. And then capturing that and developing your eye. So that took us some time.
Yeah.
Maybe the whole first season.
Yeah. I would say the whole first season.
Yeah. And I remember telling Art, I think I got a little down on myself. I'm like, man, Art, it's like, God, it's like, no. You start feeling like maybe your podcast isn't good because he was just critiquing us almost every podcast, or we'd get it right one podcast, and the next podcast we were right back to a mistake, right? Not getting it right. And I remember him saying, look, camera angles are important, but the most important is the content, what's being discussed. The content is number one. Audio is number one. Because if you have good content, good audio, right, they're going to have a great experience. And then it's cameras and camera angles. because he would remind me most people are going to stream. So focus on the content and the audio. Dial that in, and keep working on the camera angles. That will come. And it did. I think we really got dialed in on all three. So I think across all three, we're doing pretty good. Have you looked at any recent podcasts where you felt, oh man, that wasn't a great camera angle, or I could have done better there, or the audio was a little no, we've been like doing pretty good. So I did mention in the beginning when we started out, we bought cheap equipment. And I would recommend that to everybody because podcasting's not for everyone. Everybody, a lot of people, when they're guests with us, or I'll run into people that say, oh, I want a podcast. I want to start doing podcasts. But I don't think they realize the amount of work. And it can be stressful, and there's a lot of pressure because you have to keep coming up with new content, interesting new content that the masses are going to find interesting, entertaining, and educational. And that can be difficult. It's hard to get guests. So you have to be okay with doing podcasts all on your own, carrying a podcast all on your own with education that's interesting and both entertaining, right? I mean, you can have some really good education, but it can be mundane and boring. It can be delivered in a mundane, kind of boring way where you could lose the listeners. And I started listening to audiobooks. And so because I've been doing a lot of audiobooks lately, the last several months, I get it. Because you can have a great book, but the person doing the audio, oh my goodness, it's got to be a certain voice, and it's got to have a certain rhythm for me, or I can't listen to that book. So they give samples of books, and sometimes with one book, there's different people doing the audio, so you can sample. Like maybe with one book, there's 5 different people delivering the audio. So you can go sample each audio and listen to the 5 different people and the tone of their voice, the pace, how they deliver it. And I know for me, I'm looking for a certain tone. I'm looking for a certain rhythm. I'm looking for a certain delivery. So it's exciting, and I want to keep listening, and I stay engaged. And there's certain tones, certain rhythms, certain deliveries that turn me off as a listener. So I'm really well aware of that. So I try to, keep, a good tone, good delivery. Although I want to get out really pertinent, good education, you also want to deliver it in a way, sometimes where there's some humor and in a raw, organic.
It helps make the information palatable, more palatable.
Well, that's very smart of you. That's a big word. That's a big word. That was
like a $6 Scrabble
word. That was like a grown-up sentence.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's very palatable. Like eatable, like digestible, like you want to eat it and take it, and it's like yeah. So you have to be really aware of that, and so and I think we're doing pretty good. We're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Of course you can't please everybody. So, but I think we're doing pretty good, and we do get a lot of engagement. And a lot of feedback, and 100% of the feedback, and there has been a lot of it, has been beyond. It's been fantastic, except for one. We did get one bad review.
Yeah, but right? I would even say that was constructive criticism.
It was constructive criticism, and I wasn't mad at her. I was not mad at her at all. If I'm going to be honest, it did hurt my feelings a little bit. And if you're listening, don't feel bad that it hurt my feelings a little bit. But I'm a sensitive creature. You know, we're all sensitive. So, and it did make me reflect and think for a minute. It's like, oh my God, do I ramble or talk too much about my personal life or things that have nothing to do with permanent makeup? And I decided, no, I don't. Only because we got a lot of comments on that. Because a couple podcasts ago, I did mention we got our first constructive criticism, and she mentioned that she wishes that I didn't talk about my personal life, and I just got on with it and talked about permanent makeup. Like I talk a little bit too much about things that have nothing to do with permanent makeup, and because I talked about that on my podcast, we got feedback on that. And we got lots of feedback saying, don't stop talking about your personal life. It's
what makes you you.
It's what makes you you.
Someone said that.
Yeah. It gives us a little insight to who you are outside of PMU. It's interesting. It's funny. So we did get a lot. But, you know, so I'll always keep that in mind, though. I think the constructive criticism, and she wasn't mean the way she said it, but constructive criticism is good. And even though it can hurt your feelings a little bit, you shouldn't take offense to it. And we certainly didn't. We took it to heart, you know, and yeah, so that's that. We love the positive feedback, and we'll definitely take constructive criticism if it's going to help the podcast grow, evolve, and get better and better and better, right? So what else, you guys? So besides cameras, we have, with just getting the cameras, you got white balance. We have to set the white balance every single time. Yes. So there's not a lot of color correcting.
There isn't. After we discovered when I started editing, there was something that we weren't doing to the cameras, and that was setting the white balance. So there was a lot of color correcting the first couple podcasts I edited. But we realized it was just a simple fix like that. It really took away most of the color correction editing.
I think we launched a couple podcasts where a couple faces went in and out of being kind of blue.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell is that?
Went from warm to cool really quickly.
And we called art, right? And because we didn't know why it was doing that. We thought one of the cameras broke. We were looking at all the equipment, and he was like, that's white balance. So we
super easy,
it was
quick
super
fix.
easy. Yeah, we bought the white balance reference drop back, and we set the white balance now for every camera angle. There's lighting. Lighting has to be right on. There's lots of different things. That go.
And it changes between like a live podcast like this versus like a Zoom podcast, especially with lighting. Like the lighting we can't have the light boxes on for that, or else it's too bright for you. So
it gets too bright for me. You know, that can give me a migraine. But you got to have good lighting. You know, we and creating a space. Like since we've launched, we got rid of the cheap, inexpensive mics. And we bought really high-end, expensive podcast mics. We bought 4 cameras, all the same cameras, really expensive cameras. And just last week, we finally upgraded our audio board from an inexpensive, but that got us through 49 episodes. And it was pretty good. But we just upgraded to, I mean, she's a beast over there. That audio board, she's a beast. Yeah. She's massive.
Katrina looked at it and she was like, whoa.
I know. Katrina looked at it. She was like, oh my God, look at all the buttons. But there's lots of slides and buttons and effects and all that stuff. And my buddy Mike, he's the drummer for Air Supply. They came in last week and it changed it out and plugged that in because we have a really cool and very different podcast that we're filming. I believe it's April 8th. Is it April 8th?
I'm not positive.
If April 8th is a Saturday, then it's April 8th.
It should be April 8th then.
Yeah, we have a really super cool, it's different. It's a different podcast. It's a little outside PMU, but it's going to be super cool and super interesting. You know, we're going to do a tiny desk concert, live concert here with my personal friends that are singers and musicians. One of them is world famous. I mean, to this day, her and her band perform in front of 20,000 people. She's the lead singer of Expose. A lot of people know who Expose is. If you don't, you can go on YouTube and bring up their videos. I mean, they had platinum hits and toured the world. And her name is Jeanette Gerardo. And she's going to be here with Laura and Rochelle Coates. And they also made it to a high level of success in the music industry. They're both cops now. They have a band, a local band. They play around Vegas. Mike is the drummer for Air Supply. And Russ will be here. He's the guitarist for the Righteous Brothers. And sitting at the table is going to be Jeanette, Laura, and Rochelle. And we're going to we're going to be able to relate it back to dreams. Women, strong women going after their dreams. It's relatable to PMU and what a lot of us in PMU are striving for, trying to achieve, what a lot of us have gone through. I think it's going to be a fabulous podcast, and I'm super excited. So that's why we got the big beast audio board over there. So we have really good equipment now, which I think helps with the quality of a podcast, right? It makes things a little bit easier.
Yeah, it should help with the editing, right?
Oh yeah, it definitely should.
It's going to help with the
audio should be
editing.
much clearer.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. So let's talk. So here we are. We started it because of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
COVID's done. You know, we're back to classes. We're back doing conventions. We were just at the AAM a couple weeks ago. We're back, mingling and seeing each other in person. So why do we keep it going? If it's stressful, because it is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more stressful for me?
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not to take away that there's not a lot of responsibility on YouTube, because there is. But I think when you're the one in front of the camera, because it's usually me in front of the camera, you guys get to stay back there. You can look like shit.
Yeah.
Right? You can come in, your hair can be a mess and no makeup, and you sit back there in the shadows and no one sees you. And even on days like I have a migraine, or I don't feel good, or I'm feeling like depressed, or dealing with stuff, like you have to sit down here and you have to deliver a good podcast, because you always have to keep a few in the pipe, meaning you always have to be, I like to be 4 ahead in case we do get sick or something happens, we're traveling and we can't do a live one. You don't want to run out of podcasts, because I think being consistent
is key.
And we have been consistent. 50 podcasts. So we're consistent. And that is very, very stressful, to stay consistent. And every 2 weeks, you have a new podcast that is exciting and interesting, to give to your peeps, to launch for your peeps. So why do we keep doing it?
It's fun.
It's fun, and I think that the community enjoys it. We're no longer as isolated as COVID made us, but we're not back to 100% where we were pre-COVID. So I think that like having this access to education and like a sense of community in the PMU world, like via a podcast like this, is really nice. Yeah,
I agree. And you think it's fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets us. I think it gets you guys away from the computer and your everyday work that we do here at Girlz Ink.
Yeah.
I think it's a great resource of education and support for permanent makeup artists. I think we're awakening people to some things. And I'm going to talk about that. I got an Instagram voicemail last night. And it's so funny. You get messages just when you need them most, right? Because I had been feeling, I've been suffering with, migraine, heavy workload. When I get into a migraine, I've been in like a 2-week migraine. You can't work as efficiently. Your workload gets heavier. You feel like you're getting farther and farther away, from you're not going to make your deadlines and whatnot. And you can start feeling, depressed, overburdened, overwhelmed, overloaded. And that's it's not a good feeling. And you're not feeling your best self. And I knew we were doing this today. And I was hoping to God I woke up, and I felt pretty good, and I do. So, but I got this voice message last night on Instagram, and she's from New Zealand. She listens to these podcasts. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if, they, I don't know if they're okay with me saying their name, but she is from New Zealand. And she said she had just finished listening to the podcast with Clarissa. Clarissa's over in the UK. Stefania, ombre, brow blush. Her pigment line is blush to bold. And on that podcast, we talked about pixels. And Clarissa, man, I mean, she is the queen of ombre brows and queen of pixels. She was one of the first people that really mastered that pixel and was doing these beautiful pixels. And and here we are 3-4 years later, pixels got super hot and trendy 3-4 years ago. The podcast was, a few months ago. So it's been like 3 years or so. And we had a really super honest conversation about pixels. And Clarissa was talking about how she worked so hard to get pixels for that fresh picture, but they just don't hold up during the healing process. Like, you don't really see them in the healed result. Looks like a powder brow. And so this young artist, she's like, I'm a newbie, and my pixels, they weren't there in the healed result. And I just started feeling really defeated, and I felt like I was doing something wrong, and I just got hard on myself. And I'm watching, I see all these pixels on Instagram, and I'm just thinking that I'm not getting it right. I'm doing something wrong. And then I listen to you and Clarissa's podcast, and I was like mind blown. You don't even know what that did for me. And listening to, I played the voicemail for you, and it almost like this big, huge weight, this burden was lifted off her, because in that moment she realized, no, most times pixels are not healing in the skin. You're not seeing them in the healed work, So that's what this podcast does for a lot of artists. I think it awakens them. I think it turns them on, or at least gets them curious to new things, bigger needles, different products, different techniques, different ways of doing things. And what I like that she mentioned also, and the way she said it with her New England accent, it was very cute. It's like when we say bullshit, it's like bullshit, right? It sounds like bullshit. It's like funny how messages appear like right when you need them most, right? And that was her message. And that happens to me all the time. So thank you to her out there, and a big shout out to New Zealand. I love you guys. We had a lot of followers in New Zealand, so it's fantastic. And in that message, she also said that she had told a colleague of hers in New Zealand about the podcast, and to follow the podcast, to follow our page, because we keep it real. And so that's just the whole domino effect, right?
Yeah.
So
Seeing it spread
makes me super happy. Okay. So let's get into a little more personal stuff, like the three of us. Why? Because we're a team, right? This podcast can't happen without the three of us, or it could, but it wouldn't be as good. Something would be missing. And there's a lot of projects that the three of us work on together. A lot. We collaborate a lot. Why do you think the three of us make, and this is a hard question, I don't know if you knew I was going to ask this, but why do you think the three of us make such a good team. Olivia, you're up first.
I think it's just because we get along.
Yeah.
We get along, and also I feel, well, at least with like Willow, there's some things that I prefer not to do, but she enjoys doing it, and then some things that she prefers not to do, and I enjoy doing it.
Isn't that great when that just
Yeah, so it
happens
just
to work
works
out like
out.
that? Yeah. That's like me and Kat, like around the house. There's some things like I do not like doing, like cooking and paying the bills and doing that stuff. Kat does all that, but she hates yard work and ironing and laundry, and I love that stuff. So same kind of thing. Yeah.
Mhm. It's also nice to be able to like have someone to bounce ideas off of. Like, I feel like you guys both are really good at being creative with the ideas. So like I'm able to like say something that I might not have an idea for, but you guys have like a direction that you think it might go really well in.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have like a team, especially because I came from somewhere where I was the only one doing like the creative work. So I didn't have anyone to bounce those ideas off of. Here I have two people
To bounce
is
it off. Yeah.
even more. I mean, like with Kat and Sarah and Katrina, everybody else, like it's
Yeah.
nice to have that.
It's super nice. I've always been a team player and preferred to be in a collaboration with a team. I don't prefer, even when it comes to training classes or collaborating out there on like projects or products or things like that. I prefer to do a collab than doing something solo. I will do solo things, but I prefer being part of a team for sure, just for that reason. I think when, the three of us, you're right. We're just able, like you might have an initial idea and put it out there, and then you add to it, then I add to it. And then the end result ends up being something maybe none of us could imagine or have done singly because it took the three of us. Do you think it's true though that you can't have thin skin? You can't be sensitive because not every idea, because you have to start somewhere, right? There's a starting point when you're creating. And whoever's the first one to throw the first idea, you're putting it out there. And sometimes we're like, yeah, we love that's great. And then sometimes we're like, yeah, and creators tend to be sensitive people. And so you can't, I think you can't be sensitive either, because not the first idea you throw out all the time, like your two, like Willow, for your two team members are going to like, and it's almost like you got to start from scratch. Not usually, no. Usually there's elements of it. Yeah, we love, and you just build off that. But every now and then, sometimes you throw something out there and you got to start from scratch. You're like, oh no, that's way off, girl.
Yeah. I think that
Do you ever get your feelings hurt?
I think that like it's not really like my feelings get hurt. It's more just like, okay, I understand where they're coming from. I wish they didn't say that because now it's more work and we have to figure out something better. But it's usually for like it's for the betterment of the project. I think that like for being like a creative, it's not so much like having like thick skin. It's more just like being able to take that criticism as what it is, which is constructive to make the project better.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not like coming at me like and like saying it against my character. You're just saying it about the product or the project so that it can be the best that it can be.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like kind of like taking yourself out of the equation. It's about the project.
It's
not
about
really
the
me.
project and getting that project, whatever it may be, the best it can be. And that takes critiquing and, and all that stuff. I mean, you know where I'm going, Olivia.
Sorry, I snorted.
You almost laughed. You caught yourself though, just because you're on the podcast. Yeah, it was your Canva flyers at first.
They're terrible.
Oh my lordy, yeah, and it's and I'll tell you, being the critique, I think it's hard on both ends. Being critiqued for something you put like your heart and soul in and you think it's good, because you don't give me anything you don't think is good, Olivia. And vice versa, Willow. When you're ready to present, throw something out there, you think it's pretty good or a good start. Mm-hmm. Same with me. When I present something to you guys, I think it's pretty good, a pretty good start, or I wouldn't present it. So I think and I know that about you guys. So as hard as it is being critiqued and having your team members be like, you didn't quite hit it, it's also really hard being the critiquer, being the one to say, nah, yeah, because I worry about hurting you guys' feelings, because I'm sensitive that way. So, yeah, you never want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I think there's like a right way to critique and let you know that's not quite right, versus like an there's a sensitive way to say it and an insensitive way to say it. But however you say it, it has to be said because we're trying to get to the end project, and it has to be pleasing to all three of us. Like, it has to be pleasing to you, Willow, to you, Olivia, and me. All three of us have to be like, yeah, that's it. And I think when all three of us are like, yeah, that's good. And sometimes we even bring Kat into it, right? So I think a big part of a team is not micromanaging, right? Which is hard for a lot of team leaders or company leaders to do. But I don't like to micromanage. I don't micromanage. Both of you have been micromanaged at previous jobs, and you both have expressed like how that made you feel. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, preparing for today, and I think I always looked at micromanaging as it would be, because I was micromanaged at a job one time many years ago, and it was really super annoying to me. Like, it made me like not really care for my boss too much. And it was a long time ago, so I'm not really close to those emotions and feelings anymore. There's been so many years between them, so it's a little bit hard for me to resonate with all the exact emotions I may have felt. I just remember feeling like it annoyed the crap out of me, and it made me not like her. So, and both of you have been micromanaged. So, how did it make you feel? And I think this is important, like for anybody listening that's going to be opening up their own studio, developing a team of artists or staff, or going into collaborations, this thing called micromanaging.
Do you want to go first? Yeah, sure. So for me, it personally made me feel like really stressed out. Like, there was always just like a time limit for every single project. And it would just put a lot of pressure on me to perform, and like get a project completed to their satisfactory, and also something that I was proud of putting out, which can be difficult when there's a time limit to be creative. Like, you don't have access to all of those creative juices immediately. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah.
Well, for me personally, it was anxiety.
Yeah,
always the feeling of that I wasn't good enough because they were constantly micromanage me.
Really? So it made you feel like, that's deep, Olivia.
Yeah, like constantly feeling that I was going to be like fired.
Really? And that is not a good feeling.
No, it's
at
not.
all. That fucking sucks. It's like, I said, like, annoying. Like, I would imagine annoying. That's coming from like a controlling person. And I think maybe someone who micromanages, did it also give you the feeling maybe they didn't trust you?
Yeah.
I think I remember feeling like, I remember feeling like she was like super controlling, and it just annoyed me. Like I said, I'm so far away from it now. I don't remember if it made me feel like I was going to be fired, or if I wasn't good enough. Because that's pretty deep, for someone to make you feel like that. The actions of a boss can make you feel stressed out, Willow, anxiety, that you're not good enough, and that you're going to be fired. That's deep. So I think it's profound. And I think like just this last like few minutes, just this little conversation on micromanaging can be really, really helpful to anybody that's about to open up a studio, or one day going to open up a studio, going to be a team leader or a boss, and have, a staff or artists working under them, is not to micromanage. Like, anybody I feel I had to micromanage, they're just don't belong on my particular team. They don't belong at Girlz Ink. They're just not the right fit. Because I hate micromanaging, probably because it almost feels like you're babysitting, you know. And to be quite honest with you, I don't have time. I don't have time to micromanage anybody. And that's not to say that you don't periodically check in. You know, you got to be in the loop, right? I like to be in the loop with you girls. You know, every now and then I'm asking you what we got going on. But, you know, I check in, but I give you, you know, absolute freedom, creative control, you know, to kind of do your own thing, be super independent, to be leaders in your own department and your own roles. And I think that's really healthy. I think that builds healthy relationships between leader and the team, right? Because there always has to be a leader. You want a strong leader. Someone's got to drive the train. And, you know, that's the role I happen to play here. But, you know, for me, you know, you're nothing without a strong team, a strong, healthy team. I have always been under the philosophy, you know, the bigger the dream, the more important the team. And you guys know me now. I have big dreams. I come in and I you know, I have sleep issues and whatnot. I wake up at 3 a.m. to go tinkle, and you know, and I start thinking. I come in, I vomit them out to you. I'm always like telling you guys ideas and stuff like that. So, I dream big. I've always dreamed big, and had big goals and wanted to accomplish like big things in permanent makeup. So, in order to be able to do that, you have to have a good, strong, healthy team. And in order to have a good, healthy, strong team, you got to have a great relationship with your team. So, and I think, you know, giving them independence, allowing them to be leaders, giving them, you know, control over, you know, certain things. I think it's really important, you know. And there'll always be people that take advantage of that. I've been lucky all these years, not that we haven't had, you know, some things here and there over the last, you know, 12 years, but with you guys, I think what makes us a good team is, you know, you guys are just really super hardworking. And I feel like my dream is your dream. Is that corny? I mean, it's kind of corny, but do you know what I mean? I don't mean like all my dreams, but like the Girlz Ink dream, what we're trying to do with Girlz Ink, what we're trying to accomplish within Girlz Ink, like what I want for Girlz Ink, what I want to do for the industry, how I want to teach and mentor and leave the industry in a better place than when I entered. You know, all that is really important to me. And maybe it's not true, but you guys make me feel like that's important to you too. If it's important to me, it's important to you. That's how the both of you make me feel.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. I can tell. I can tell it's authentic and it's real. I can tell it's not bullshit and fake, and I can tell it's real with you guys. And that gives me, you know, an easy, peaceful feeling. It just does. So, and it's wonderful to work with people that share your desire to do good things, you know, when you're on kind of the same wavelength, when you're thinking, when you're in alignment with what the goal is. Yeah, I love that. I think also like allowing your team, like each one of you, to take projects and run with it. Like you had Beyond the Epidermis. Mm-hmm. You took the entire lift class and translated it, turned it all over into a Spanish version, videos, not text, you know, the written chapters, everything. That was a really long, in-depth project. Beyond the Epidermis, we've been working on that for a year. The color theory project with the checklists. I think allowing you two girls just to run with that and do that. Well, why don't you tell them what it did for you rather than me speaking for you?
I think that you giving the Beyond the Epidermis project to me, especially, you gave it to me pretty soon into me working here, so it felt like kind of like a big moment. Like, you trusted me enough to give me a project that I knew how much it meant to you and how much it does mean to you. So like in that moment, I felt kind of honored to be able to have that project, because it felt like you trusted me and you like trusted that my input would be good to the project.
Yeah.
And that you just trusted me to take care of the project and to give you a good outcome with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just gave you a bunch of written content. You kind of pieced it together in a certain way. You had your own ideas how it should flow, and where the certain chapters should kind of sit in the book, and how it should look, and this and that. You had ideas about how to bind. You just had lots of ideas, and some of them you ran with, you just did, and then you told me later. Some of them you asked me, you got my input and asked me if I liked, and that project, you played a really important role, Willow. I'll just say that, and it wouldn't be what it ended up being without you, 100%. So I'm super grateful and thankful that you wanted to take that project and you did what you did with it, because I think I'm just as you are, I am really proud of that project. So I'm super excited, and same with you, Olivia, with Lift, the Lift Spanish. I mean, lots of people were asking for that to be converted over into Spanish, and that was an undertaking. I mean, you had to well, you know what you had to do.
Some words I had to relearn.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember you saying, I don't know if there's a Spanish word for shader, like 8-shader needle,
Yeah.
you had to relearn, but you had to translate all the videos that I did in the course and rewrite everything.
I started dreaming with your voice.
You started dreaming with my voice.
Because I kept replaying the videos.
You keep playing the video. But it came out really, really, really good. It did. I mean, every 3 months I would check in a little bit. I would loop in. So where we at on that, Olivia? Yeah, that ended up being a year project. But I don't think you or I, really understood how big of a project that was.
Yeah,
right?
And it built my confidence that you trusted me with that.
Yeah,
especially because you don't know Spanish, so
no.
How are you gonna go check it?
How am I gonna check it? I mean, hopefully you're not yeah. I mean, telling them things you shouldn't be telling them, but who knows? Who knows what? Yeah, what's on that Spanish course? No, we had some of my really good Spanish-speaking colleagues that do removal go in, not because we didn't trust you, but we wanted, you never want to launch anything without all your, I's dotted, T's crossed. So we wanted some Spanish-speaking colleagues that do removal to go in and review the course, the videos and everything, to make sure everything was on point, and it was. So you actually got really great feedback.
I know, I was pretty glad. I was excited.
You were just glad it was over.
That too.
That's how I'm feeling about Beyond the Epidermis. It's been a long drudging project. It's been fun. I love creating it, but sometimes you get to places in a project where it just seems like it's never going to launch, because I'm the kind of person that, I mean, I bet my career on my projects, kind of, and it's got to be perfect. It's got to be everything. It's got to be everything. And so we've taken our time making sure that was really super accurate information and whatnot. So we are at the very tail end of Beyond the Epidermis. So maybe by the time this podcast launches, that will be launched out in the market. Yeah. So one more thing, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
I think that's what also makes us a good team. First is there's no micromanaging. We trust each other. and we bounce off each other really, really well. We're really independent in our own projects, but can come together when needed. And I think the 80-20 rule, I think this is something else anybody opening up their own studio should take into consideration. And the 80-20 rule is, sometimes we do this in our private lives too with our partners. We can expect our partner to be 100% of everything we want, need, and desire. And team leaders, owners of companies can expect their employees or their staff to be 100% of everything they want, expect, need. And that is delusional. Like, no one is 100% to any, it's impossible. If we're not even 100% to our own selves, there's no perfect human being, right? We all have room for growth. Every single person has things about themselves that they don't like, or they recognize, that they have to work on. And that's what life is all about, evolving and growing as a human, becoming a better human. So if as a human, you are always work in progress, and you're not even 100% to your own self, how can you be 100% to anyone else? How can anybody put that expectation on another person? Yet there's people out there that do. There's people that expect their romantic partner to be 100%. And that relationship is just, you're setting them that person up to fail, because they're never going to be able to meet that. It's not realistic. And same with in the work environment. There's no employee that is going to be 100%. It's delusional, and it's setting that employee up to fail. So that's where the 80-20 rule comes in. If you're 80-20, meaning that romantic partner or that team member, that employee is 80% of what you need them to be, then you're doing great. You got a winner. Keep them, right? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. I had never heard of that rule before you mentioned that. And it does make a lot of sense, because asking someone to be 100% for you is kind of, it's unfair, and it's not possible for them to be 100%. Especially at all times. Like, that's a lot of asking.
That's a lot of asking. I mean, I don't, maybe we have moments, like fleeting moments, where we feel like we're 100%, but just in day-to-day life, you're just, the overall picture, there's just no team member, no employee that is going to be 100% of everything. It's just impossible. It's impossible. Of course, there's deal breakers, that, everybody has their own deal breakers, right? Like, you can't have an employee that steals a lot. I mean, that's a given. But as far as just performance and being an employee, it's the 80-20 rule. You got to give, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be times that they don't maybe get a project done on time, or, this, that, and the other. You got to give someone, that wiggle room, that 20% wiggle room. And if you don't, you're just going to keep churning through staff. You're just going to feel you've set it up in your own mind that they're not good enough. They're not the right employee. They're not the right team member, because they're not 100%, right? And same in your romantic relationship, you're just going to keep going through partners, or there's going to be a lot of turmoil in that relationship. So I think the 80-20 rule, and I heard that on Dr. Phil, by the way. Yeah, he's come in handy. I've learned a lot from Dr. Phil over the years. But I think that's a really, really important rule or philosophy to keep in mind when you're building your team. If you're getting out in your own studio and you're hiring a team, hiring a staff, hiring artists, that no one is going to be 100% ever.
Yeah. And I think like everyone's form of 100% is different.
Yeah.
So you can't expect someone to have all those qualities that exceeds your 100%.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's impossible.
It's impossible. It's impossible. And it's unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
What?
let me tell you your,
Yeah. What is it?
if you and Willow both are like 80-20, like that's that's average. 80-20 is good, right? 80-20 is good. I mean, if they're like 79-21, then no. But 80-20 is really good. That's healthy. That's considered really, really healthy. If they're 80% of what you need an employee or, a romantic partner. But honest to goodness, you and Willow both are 99-1. Odds in your favor. 99 good. 1 and the only reason I give you a 1 is to keep the pressure off. It's like no one's perfect. I mean, you showed up with a hickey yesterday.
I tried hiding
Willow. So there's your 1%.
I'll take that.
Yeah. No, honest to God, if I was like sitting, with like personal friends, and you would never hear this, I mean, that's what I would tell them. I would tell them that, like you two are like 99-1. It's like, how did I get so lucky? I mean, how did Kat and I, get so fucking lucky? And it's fantastic. And sometimes, how sometimes like you told me, Olivia, you get anxiety, you feel like you could get fired. I have moments like that where like I love you guys so much. You're such a part of not just Girlz Ink and my team, but me and the work that we're doing for the industry, that sometimes I can get fear and anxiety. What if I lost you guys? What if you quit? And some, and then I try to squash it right out of my brain, but I'm wondering if other company owners like go through that. It's not something I sit around and think about all the time or churn all the time. I don't want you to think that it's not, but every now and then, how sometimes you can just get some dark thoughts or whatnot, or your mind can, wander. Like I'll get that sometimes, so I think it can go both ways, like a boss or a team leader, if they don't have a healthy relationship with you and they're micromanaging you and they're, there's time constraints on this and that and blah, 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 blah. It can make you feel anxiety and like maybe they're not happy with you and you're going to lose your job. But it can happen with a company owner too, or a team leader. You can think, oh my God, everything's going so great. They're such an intricate part of everything. Everything's working so well. It's like, what if they left? That'd be fun, So you can go, company owners can go through that too.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother perspective.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that. That puts you in a place of empowerment.
No, it makes me feel special.
No, it should. But, Kat and I love you girls and what you mean.
We love you guys.
Yeah, we love you guys too. We're really lucky that we just get along and genuinely like each other. Yeah. And it's a good feeling. It's a really, really, really great feeling, I think, all the way around. Yeah. So, all right. I think this was a really good podcast.
I think so too.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I think we gave some really good advice, and I wouldn't want to do the 50th with anybody but you two. So I'm glad you decided. I know you guys were kind of nervous. You're more behind the scenes kind of girls rather than in front of the camera girls. So thank you for spending 2 hours on your makeup this morning, Olivia.
You're welcome.
And thank you for covering your hickey, Willow.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that. I haven't seen a hickey since 1987. I know. It's like I had to ask Willow, hickeys are still a thing?
Yep.
Didn't know that. I guess that means it's true love. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's kind of new. It's kind of a new thing, right? You guys are still kind of new. That's great. That's great. I love it. All right. So we always end Tatter-a-fact with a quote, or we try to. Every now and then I forget. But we came up with a really good quote. Actually, you kind of found the quote, came
I
up with
did.
the quote. So do you want to do the honors,
I would love to.
Willow?
Okay. What camera? That one? Okay. None of us is as smart as all of us. And that's very true.
Yeah. Say it, Olivia.
None of us is as smart as all of us.
None of us is as smart as all of us. I love that. The
Mhm.
minute, because we were trying to find something kind of poignant
Mhm.
to end with yesterday, and that just summed it up in just that simple few words. None of us is as smart as all of us. And that is the magic and the beauty of a team, of collaboration. Yeah. I really believe that. So, and I'm just so glad that you two are on this team, that we get to be team members. And I hope that we are team members for many, 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 many years to come. And I am super excited for all the new projects we talk about and dream about doing. And I think we're going to have a blast doing them. So I'm excited about the future. I really, really am. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Tatter-a-fact, the 50th episode. Just a huge, heartfelt thank you to everybody that streams us, watches us on YouTube, follows us, supports us, engages us, sends us emails, leaves me voicemails on Instagram, all the different ways you reach out and communicate with us. We feel we're building a really kind of cool community with this podcast, and we feel really privileged to be doing it. So thank you very much. Stay in the I fucked that up. Stay in the pursuit of happiness, everybody. We will see you next time.